I chose our past three presidents, but they've all had a quite alarming tendency to do undemocratic things, to use executive power in undemocratic ways. So with Biden, he's done this a number of times, but most recently with his student loan amnesty, which is just clearly not authorized by Congress, but he went ahead and did it anyway.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with commentary editor Conn Carroll. And Conn, President Biden gave a speech this past week about how Republicans are a threat to democracy, right? And they should vote for Democrats. And, setting aside just the conceptual facts that arguing that the ability to vote for the opposing party is anti-democratic, which is sort of ironic, I guess. You wrote an editorial about some of the more concrete reasons why that's a stupid argument to make. Tell us about that.
Sure. So now it's not just Biden. Now, if you look at, I chose our past three presidents, but they've all had a quite alarming tendency to do undemocratic things, to use executive power in undemocratic ways. So with Biden, he's done this a number of times, but most recently with his student loan amnesty, which is just clearly not authorized by Congress, but he went ahead and did it anyways. Now, President Trump also did this as well. He used a national emergency declared at the southern border to build his wall. Now, Congress didn't authorize that spending, just as Congress didn't authorize the spending for Biden's student loan amnesty bailout. But he called a national emergency and then used a loophole in the law to try to fund his border wall. And President Obama also did something similar, also in an election year. These always seem to happen in an election year. He had not been able to pass amnesty on immigration amnesty this time, not a student loan amnesty, but an immigration amnesty through Congress. So instead, he he created DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which basically gave amnesty to a select group of immigrants who had come to the country illegally when they were children. And these are all instances of presidents doing something against the law, which really should be the biggest threat to democracy.
Right, a little bit of a hypocrisy there from Biden. And speaking of hypocrisy,
yes.
This week, the White House press secretary sort of made some galling denials of what's happening at the border in exchange with Fox News reporter Peter Doocy. I believe we have that clip.
How come migrants are allowed to come into this country unvaccinated, but world-class tennis players are not?
You're talking about which world-class tennis player?
Novak Djokovic.
So as far, just since you asked me about him. So visa records are confidential under U.S. law. Therefore, the U.S. government cannot discuss the details of individual visa cases. Due to privacy reasons, the U.S. government also does not comment on medical information of individual travelers as it relates to the tennis player. Look, those questions regarding vaccination requirements is I defer you to CDC. This is a CDC requirement for foreign nationals. This is something that they decide. This is something that is up to them. The U.S. Open and their participant protocols, I'd refer you to them. They have their own specific protocols as well. So they're two different things.
But how is it two different things? Somebody unvaccinated comes over on a plane. You say that's not okay. Somebody walks into Texas or Arizona unvaccinated, they're allowed to stay. Why?
But that's not how it works. Like we actually no.
I know that that's not what you guys want to happen, but that is what is happening.
But that's not. It's not like somebody walks over and that's not how.
That's exactly what's happening. Thousands of people are walking in a day.
So how can this administration sort of ignore what's happening right now?
They just clearly must not know what's going on at the border. For her to sit there and say through her teeth that that is not what is happening when it clearly is just amazing. The reaction on Twitter was amazing because you have all these reporters at the border who have videos of this happening every day.
People literally walking over.
Literally walking over the border, surrendering to Border Patrol, who then processes them, but then releases them into the country. And none of them have their vaccination cards checked. It's just not happening.
She sort of leaned in that exchange on Title 42, right? Even though the White House, did they not actively try to end Title 42?
Well, not only have they tried to end Title 42 completely, but from President Biden's first day in office, he started selectively enforcing it. So Trump applied Title 42 to all migrants trying to come into the border. On day one, Biden exempted unaccompanied minors. So if you were 16, 17 years old trying to come into the country, you were exempted from Title 42. He then expanded that to families. So if you were a mother and father, or just a father and daughter trying to cross the border, you were also exempted for Title 42. So it still applies to single adults. So someone over 18 that comes over from Mexico, for example, will still be returned for Title 42. But there are literally thousands of people who are completely exempted from Title 42 who are coming into the country every day.
You also write in the Examiner this past week about how Congress needs to protect the youths from social media ills. Sounds like you have a daughter who's maybe experienced some positive influence from social media, but tell us about that, but also what Congress needs to do there.
So, not all social media is bad, I don't think. I think you definitely want to stay away from Instagram, probably Facebook too. My daughter actually likes Pandora, so she's kind of explored her musical interest through Pandora. And I found a nugget this week that she was going back to school, and she said her English teacher asked her 4 favorite songs, and they were, I think, Under Pressure, Bohemian Rhapsody, American Pie, and Immigrant Song.
Great jams.
Yeah, all great. But they're not all my favorites, but I can guarantee you that she kind of found them through Pandora, which is kind of nice. But there is a growing body of evidence that when you look at especially Instagram, it has had a proven very negative effect on particularly teenage girls. The incidence of self-harm by teenage girls in hospitals is up 150% since 2012, when these mobile devices, became ubiquitous. And research shows it's pretty much primarily because of social media apps that are getting used too much. And I think it is far past time for Congress to come in and requiring some more parental controls for these social media apps so that our young girls are not being hurt in this way.
Well, Conn, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.